track. Hi, everybody. My name's Ryan. I'm calling from here from London, and I'm the founder of AEROPOWDER. And we're a startup, an early stage startup looking at the circular economy and surplus feathers. As Matt's alluded to, what's really interesting usually when people speak to us is they've never considered all the feather material that's generated by the food industry. It's a huge quantity of material. Poultry remains a very popular protein source. I know there's a lot of good work being done about the future of food, but for now, poultry is still on the up, low resource footprint, environmental footprint compared to other sort of meat sources. But we never stop to consider what happens to all of the feathers. And it's as I said, it's still in many areas incinerated, landfilled. Here in Europe, we do have methods to convert it into a low-grade animal feed, but it's pretty good in my experience, and we could be doing something a lot better with that material. So we've turned that, we have a process to convert that into the world's first thermal packaging material made from surplus feathers. We want to harness the already amazing properties of that material and turn it into a packaging solution that can replace items like expanded polystyrene that's commonly used in chilled deliveries. So thereby getting rid of plastics, but also dealing with a waste solution in a true sort of circular economy philosophy. I'll talk you through the process while the video plays. I have to skip forward in the interest of time. But essentially, yes, we take feathers and then process them into an intermediate fiber. We do have a patent on this process. Our efforts in this area are really concerned about optimizing this material for excellent thermal properties. I'll come into those in a second. But essentially, yes, we work with a manufacturing partner based out in Denmark. We can produce around 4 tons of product per week in a manufacturing run. And we've got now the expertise to sort of finish and package the goods at the end. So very simply, Plumo liners, I have one of them here. You might be able to still see my face. They're soft, they're lovely, they're very, very good at insulating. They go inside a cardboard delivery box and will form a thermal barrier that means food or pharmaceuticals stay chilled during transport. And in this increasingly, e-commerce focused world, these items are very, very important as a sort of supply chain solution. Now, it really does work very, very well. We've compared Plumo against both the sort of incumbent, which is expanded polystyrene, but a number of other sort of more sustainable solutions in the market. In the top left there, you'll see a graph showing how long does the item stay chilled inside the delivery box. More time means less spoilage, less revenue loss, less angry customers walking away from your business as they get a very hot and disgusting piece of meat, food or whatever it is. So yes, Plumo can keep items chilled for longer, more than polystyrene, more than the sheep's wool solution here in the UK. And excitingly, the Temper Pack, which is in the green there, is a US startup doing great things, just raised the Series D by Goldman Sachs out in the US. So we've got the beating of them, as well as obviously focusing on how we can have positive carbon impacts through replacing plastics. So we do have customers on the market, and apologies for the noise, because someone's supposed to be doing building work. But Plumo is on the market. We're just launching this week with our newest customer, Ruby, doing high-end frozen meals. So it's going well. We have a small team, myself as the founder, a few others. We've got Alex and Fleming as full-time, and still a few other part-timers. But it's still a small team, and we've got where we are today, raising through Crowdcube and various awards and grants. And now we're focusing on where do we go from here. We have a third-party manufacturer based in Denmark. Much like the previous presentation, we have many ideas of what we want to be doing and moving towards a pilot facility sooner rather than later, with less Extantia and many other industries areas of focus. A lot of exciting work we're doing here. And eventually, at large scale, we want to pull back and focus on being a sort of technology and licensing company with our innovation everywhere, able to access that 10 million tons of material around the world and generating licensing sort of revenues that way. And the ask from us at the moment, we're raising a seed round. We're looking for £2 million to accelerate our growth and basically prepare ourselves properly for that pilot stage. Obviously, we've got a lot of positive traction. We're also leading a €2 million industrial research grant starting this week as well. So yes, we're looking for extra capital to boost revenues and get letters of intent ready for a pilot facility to move towards profitable manufacturing and the next stage of our business. And that should be 5 minutes.
Yes, it is, and the rooster is about to cluck. Congrats on nailing the pitch. That was super interesting. The company's fascinating. This is one I've been looking into as well, potentially for our syndicate. But first, I want to hand things over. Kostas, Nadav, do you guys have any questions for Ryan and AEROPOWDER?
Happy to go first. Thanks for the pitch. Really interesting. My first question would be about the amount of adaptation we need to have for different customers. So, when assuming that we're still looking at the first application, that it's for the packaging, the thermal packaging, how much of an adaptation process is required to go from one client to the other or one application to the other?
So it depends what stage you're looking at. And one of the things we did very recently is understanding that when you're providing packaging materials, customization, sizing, shape, and density is all very important. We can do that now. And one of the things we can do, which is nice about our process, is because you're physically cutting the materials, we can take the offcuts and recycle them. So there's zero waste in that manufacturing side of things. What we do know is that we've done a lot of work on densities and the other things that may be beneficial per client. And with the equipment we have, it's a case of dialing it in and obviously just producing a different set of materials. The reason we've started with this packaging solution is that it lets us demonstrate a lot of things about the thermal properties of the material. So scaling up to do construction, for example, is less of a jump now. You're now making big plumos, thick plumos, large sheets to go on housing. And it's that kind of mentality where we're always look towards what's the next logical step and make sure your adaptations are stepwise rather than huge changes needed to jump from industry to industry.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ryan, for the presentation. It was very interesting. So a few questions. Maybe to start off, can you tell us a little bit more about the inputs, meaning how exactly is the process of collecting the surplus feathers?
Yeah. I keep drawing back to previous discussions, but what we looked at is the whole process, right? Is we want to do something very new, very novel of taking this mass-produced material, and it's a circular economy question of how do you access it, how do you process it and clean it. So what is going to happen is you're going to eventually have localized collection sites or on-site processing and washing of that material, and probably moving it to a central location for manufacturing. So that will involve arguably a very glorified and fancy washing machine, a drying, and then a cutting process when you get to our product. Now, where we take this philosophy as a business across a whole is looking at that big question and saying, right, what can we do to prove things now? We still have work going on in that washing sort of area of our business, but that involves accessing very big businesses that don't really want to work with a small company on this little problem until it's ready. So we are intercepting pre-cleaned surplus feathers from the bedding industry. So we don't want to sleep on giant feathers that will stab us in the face. So we take that as a surplus. Our supplier currently will be putting those in landfill, and we use that to create plume as a product. It gets product to market and obviously does all the things that we need to do. And as we scale and move through our journey and development as a business, we will bring online the capabilities to source these tons of materials from the poultry processing sites, and obviously wash those within a short amount of time and get them into our production process. We have run a trial of 1 ton of tipping feather. That works very well, producing lovely material. So we're just really keen to get to that point at scale as soon as we can.
Good. Thank you. One quick follow-up question. Can you further elaborate on the first customer that I think you said you mentioned?
Yeah. So
what exactly?
This all started from actually a major meal kit delivery business here in the UK. It was Gusto, actually. Our competitor to HelloFresh reached out and said back in 2017 even, can you do this for our delivery boxes? And we said yes, but they wanted 2 million units in a couple of years' time, and it was way too early. So we pulled back, and our first customer was an ethical butcher based in Oxford. It's a beautiful farm. It has all these eco toilets, which aren't as fun as to use, but do a good job for the environment. But they send ethical and organic meat produce nationwide around the country. So we started supplying them before the pandemic. There was a bit of an interruption. And now, obviously, now we're back on our feet and still supplying them. We found new customers as a bagel delivery business in East London who are sending out cream cheese and smoked salmon using our packaging to keep that cool. And By Ruby, the one I referenced, is a business that's sending high-end frozen prepared meals, kind of like the supermarkets here in the UK. You've got the ready meals. Imagine a very upper end version of that, frozen, and then sending out nationwide deliveries using our packaging, and that's going out now.
Thank you.
Have you got any pushback from end consumers? I feel like that could be one main challenge. My meal just arrived and it's surrounded in chicken feathers, and someone's a vegan, or they're not comfortable.
Firstly, for that exact reason, we've been sensible and targeting, obviously, for vegan and vegetarian businesses. This is not appropriate. Fully respect that. I have vegan meals for lunch all the time. That's all good with me. We are starting with meat delivery businesses and people involved in animal-based produce, be it full meals and these kind of things. And then the messaging in general is, I know I've talked a lot about feathers, and I always sort of hesitate when I say it, but we're a circular economy business. We're about reducing waste in society and replacing plastics. And we also push the messaging of we're already very used to these as luxury items in clothing and bedding. So trying to get that mentality across is how we bridge that gap, and making sure no one feels put out by what they're receiving in their packaging. And it honestly does look like a luxury type product as you receive it, so that helps as well.
Why did you decide to go first for food packaging as opposed to going straight for housing insulation, where you'd have larger sales, larger contracts? It would be much more standardized.
I think maybe if I had another go, that it's obviously possible, but I think as a first-time founder, learning the ropes as you go, accessing construction is this, you walk in and you suddenly realize how things work in the purchasing decisions, all these chains of sort of the architect, the person that goes out, I can't even remember all the names of them, but then also things like fire safety, how long it takes it's a very conservative industry, it's basically long story short. So very easy for us to walk up to business, knock on the door and say, you guys send this, would you like to use packaging? Let's get it going. And we'll build up that experience, that credibility, and then we'll be able to access some of the more difficult markets. For example, pharmaceuticals. So same sort of delivery system is being used all around the world for pharmaceutical last mile delivery. A lot of it is still based on expanded polystyrene. There is a higher bar to entry. So if we establish ourselves in the food industry for a bit longer, now we are having conversations with people in the pharmaceutical industry. So it's a case again of low-hanging fruit, what's easiest to access first, and we'll go back and attack construction and these things sooner rather than later.
Okay. And one last question from me before I hand it over to the other two would be, how does this compare on an insulation density? So for instance, if I want to, the bigger it is, the more it's going to cost to ship, the worse the climate impact is going to be.
Sure. So the way we measure it, and everyone generally is comfortable with this kind of thickness, is roughly 2.5 centimeters is the bog standard sort of thickness and size. And when everyone is at that thickness, Plumo comes out on top. So there's an argument that maybe if you wanted to and you're doing it right, you could reduce the thickness and therefore get more units in, more transport and keep the same performance, or you buffer and have extra performance with our product. So on a thickness and density perspective, we still come out on top.
That's great to hear. Kostas, Nadav, do you have any other questions for Ryan?
Maybe one final question from my end. So I think you mentioned that you're going to, the next step is to build your pilot. So at what scale are you guys operating right now?
Yeah, so right now, I think if you look at our yearly revenue today, it would be, we're around about the sort of 35,000, 40,000 on sales at the moment, 40,000 K on sales. We manufacture batch production runs with our manufacturing partner out in Denmark, and we will continue to do that over the seed raise, but obviously trying to max that out basically. And once we've maxed that out, then the next stage comes the pilot facility where we'll do another raise, hopefully fund a lot of that with grants or debt financing or some kind of other less expensive capital. But that's also the exciting part where cost of goods becomes profitable, and we can quickly move to a sort of EBITDA positive scenario with a pilot facility, letting us get further revenues, but also do all the R&D and all the other exciting sort of products and industries applications as well. And at that scale, by the way, we'll be looking to do about 1,500 tons of feathers just to demonstrate. It'll let us do about, insulate probably 5 million boxes over the course of a year. So again, it's not, people like HelloFresh are doing far, far more. But it'll be a start, and it'll be enough to look at this pilot facility and say, I can see this, I can see how it works at scale. Who wants to build more of these all around the world, wherever there are feathers?
So that's when you start licensing then?
That's when we start licensing. Yeah.
Okay. That was the last main question I had. Anything else, guys?
Very quickly on that point, we are already in discussions, and we were considering licensing quite early in the US. It fell apart, not because of us, but the pilot company out there just had to rearrange some things internally. We would be looking initially at bringing Plumo to other areas via a subcontracted sort of situation, but that again establishes, product market fit, and then licensing is actually more of a please take over the reins rather than us sort of overseeing and partnering with you. But that's already in some discussions, and we hope to have a test of US-made Plumos within a couple of months.